Kathy, Bernie, Anita, Jerry, Scott, Stuart. I want to thank Community Legal Services and Kathy Carr for inviting me to speak with you this morning, and thanks also to the Philadelphia Trial Lawyers Association for sponsoring this wonderful event. It's a particular honor to be asked here by CLS, which has been advancing the cause of access to justice for some 45 years and has been doing it at least as well as anyone in the entire United States. I know that your organization has won many national awards for excellence in serving the legal needs of the community's poor and working class, and that many of your 48 attorneys have also been recognized by local, regional, and national organizations. I suppose you know that after almost 5 decades, it's about time that the United States government and the Justice Department also said thank you. Thank you for all of the work that you and your supporters in this room do. So it's not only my personal thanks, but those of the President and the Attorney General that I'm here to deliver to you personally today. It's also a real pleasure to be honored together with Representative Kathy Mandarino, who has spent her career in public service supporting access to justice. As you all know, she's been incredibly effective on behalf of victims of violence and low-income women and children, families. The state of Pennsylvania is losing a true champion, although I know that your retirement, I don't see Kathy here, I'm sure she's busy doing something, but let her know that I wish her well in her retirement. It's well earned, and I hope it will be just as well. Enjoy. To quote her, as she closed her remarks, when you have justice on your side, nothing is impossible. I also want to join all of you in recognizing Mike Bonney, Anita Senos Singh, and Johnny May Coles for their truly significant contributions to the really important work of the lawyers and the advocates gathered here, and to the communities that you serve. Now, compared to many of you, I think I'm a relative newcomer to the calling of access to justice, at least insofar as that's only recently become sort of my formal job description. It's been less than 3 months since a president that I once taught, and whom I admire hugely, and an attorney general whom I respect tremendously, appointed me to lead this administration's new initiative in search of justice. Search that you all know is at the heart of our national identity, and one that embodies the aspirations that both President Obama and Attorney General Holder have repeatedly articulated. I've got this suite of offices in the Robert F. Kennedy building, which we fondly call Main Justice. It's not large, it's not particularly impressive, and my fledgling legal staff is still pretty small. But there's one thing that's really huge about our office, and it's the sign outside my door. It just says, access to justice. And people who have visited me there have often paused to have their photographs taken. Not with me, but with the sign on my door. They pause and they say, access to justice. And some of them, including some state and federal judges and prosecutors and public defenders and leaders of charitable organizations that we're working with, have openly marveled that there is, at long last, such a sign somewhere in the Department of Justice. Now, you've already heard roughly that You've heard that our initiative is charged with a bunch of different things: improving the availability and quality of indigent defense, enhancing civil legal representation for those without great wealth, including the vanishing middle class, as well as the poor, promoting less lawyer-intensive and court-intensive solutions when possible, focusing with special care on the legal needs of the most vulnerable among us, working with federal, state, and tribal judiciaries in strengthening fair, impartial, and independent adjudication, exchanging information with foreign ministries of justice and judicial systems, just got back from a trip to Warsaw, on our respective efforts to improve access, and encouraging the development of more thoroughly evidence-based solutions to problems in the delivery of legal services. Now, those are 7 pretty tall orders, as I'm constantly reminded by others and as I often remind myself. We all know that law and justice are not synonymous. Law is a means, justice is an end. And all too often throughout world history, including our own history, the law has been an instrument not so much of justice, but of injustice, not so much of access, but of obstruction. The law in the United States, not so long ago, denied freedom, even personhood, to an entire race of human beings. And for a full half century after the 14th Amendment, denied full equality, including the franchise, to half the people in this country, a whole gender. And our laws still deny full equality to many of our LGBT brothers and sisters. But as President Obama has always been fond of saying, we grow, we learn. With occasional steps backwards, we manage to evolve. I very much agree with Kathy that despite all the problems, we've made enormous progress. Think how much better things are than they would have been, but for the work that you've done. The President is fond of quoting, and has been ever since he was a student and a research assistant of mine, the preamble of the Constitution. He loves it. In order to form a more perfect union. We're not perfect. We've elected a president who is committed to making us better. The president is committed to the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the Defense of Marriage Act. He's issued a presidential memorandum that will allow partners to visit their ill loved ones in hospitals that participate in Medicare and Medicaid. And he's selected an attorney general for whom the perennial deficiencies in indigent defense and the enormous gaps in legal services for the poor and the middle class constitute not just a problem, but a crisis. And I do agree with the Attorney General that we are in a state of crisis. Despite all the progress, public defenders' offices are underfunded and understaffed. Their annual caseloads can range from 500 to 900 felonies and over 2,000 misdemeanors per lawyer, at least 5 to 6 times the ceiling set by the National Advisory Commission on Criminal Justice. The situation is not less dire in civil cases, including those that involve life-altering matters like deportation, loss of child custody, and eviction. Although our Supreme Court has not held that indigents in proceedings like that are entitled to be represented at public expense by counsel, no one doubts that those who cannot afford counsel in proceedings touching matters that momentous are at a grievous disadvantage. It will come as no surprise to you, I think, that legally represented immigrants who seek asylum in the U.S. to avoid persecution and torture in their home countries win their claims for asylum at 3 times the rate of those who are legally unrepresented. It's not because the merits of the case are different. Or imagine the plight of unaccompanied kids, just little children, 8,000 of whom come to this country each year without a parent or a guardian to watch over them, and are then detained by immigration officials on their way to deportation. A majority of these kids have no legal assistance at all to help them navigate one of the most complex of all legal labyrinths. Now, those problems are not episodic, they're systemic. To qualify for federally funded legal assistance, you've got to earn no more than 25% above the poverty level. More than 50 million Americans qualify, even by that very rigid criterion. But over half of those who qualify, who seek assistance from the 137 principal federally funded legal assistance programs, over half have to simply be turned away because the level of available funding is so low. Think about all the people who don't bother going because they don't expect to get help, but all the people who don't know what kind of help they need, the people to whom organizations like yours have reached out rather than waiting until they come to you. But I won't belabor statistics or anecdotes at this breakfast. You're as aware as I am of the statistics, and you live the anecdotes every day. I've heard about some of them today. It's an inspiration, genuinely an inspiration to hear what you do. Just know that this is not a crisis that the Obama administration is ignoring. Full as the agenda is, and we have a lot on the plate, the administration is committed to improving delivery of legal services and increasing access to justice for all. More than its predecessors, this government is committed to making justice an active verb.